So, welcome to this new Cubics tutorial about camera mapping. Basically, what is camera mapping? Camera mapping is taking a still 2D image and then you project it onto a 3D replica. So, you create this replica in Blender, like here. And afterwards, you project the image onto this 3D scene and then you can animate your camera and you'll get a result something like this. And actually this looks like a real video you've taken with your camera, but it's just only made with your computer. But this is not the exact scene we are creating. I thought we start with this anvil because this is a bit easier to do, but if you know the basics you can do anything you want. So first of all we have to load in our background image. So select background image, hit open, go to where you saved it, click on it. In my case it's an anvil. If you hit 0 on the number pad you can see it, the background image, and yeah, there it is. Next we have to set the resolution of the camera to the actual size of the image. So in my case it is 6000 by 3376 pixels. So that's it. Now you can see it's important to set those values right, otherwise the image would get stretched. And this is not what we want, so it's important to set those right, set the resolution to 100%, and then we have to change the focal length to the actual focal length of our camera. And where it is, mine is 25 millimeters, where it is here. Actually here, 25 millimeters. You have to set the focal length of the virtual camera to 25 millimeters, or just the size you have. Yeah. And now you have to match the camera to the actual 3D scene. And that's a bit tricky actually, but I've tried out this before, and I don't want to bore you, so I'm just typing those in. It's just a bit tricky, but not too hard to get this. And the rotation. So actually it's just trying out, basically not too hard, as I said. And now the scene is set up. So now we come to the modeling part, which is actually the most advanced part of the camera mapping, but it is not too hard, because actually you don't have to model everything. You just have to model the parts which are visible. And in the trailer I did before, I mostly used planes, and afterwards I just did a bit extruding and creating a face there, a loop cut there, and so, but it wasn't hard modeling. Pretty basic. Like here, I'm just creating a cube, the smallest part here in the middle, and extruding the parts out to get more detail. And first I tried to create a big shape, and afterwards getting more detail, but that was tricky, and it hasn't worked for me. And then I tried this method, which is actually a lot easier. And yeah, that's it. You have just to know how to do it, to model this object, and then it isn't this hard. And actually here I mean, creating this face is not, you don't have to create this face there, nobody can see it, and nobody cares about this part, because you haven't got an image of the backside, so you can't create a texture. You can't texture those parts, so nobody can see it, nobody can tell it, nobody cares about this. And here I'm just, extruding out, add a loop cut, manipulate the vertices so they're in the right position, selecting this edge, extruding it out again, selecting those vertices, extruding out, all time the same thing, selecting those 4 vertices, hitting F, selecting those 4, hitting F. And actually I forgot here to scale this face along the x-axis, but doesn't matter, you can't see it, so I'm just creating a face now here, but this isn't needed actually. By the way, the keys I used most were E to extrude, Ctrl and R to create loop cuts, F to create new faces, R to rotate, G to move, and if you press X, Y or Z, you can lock the movement or the rotation to specific axis, and this is just depending on the global axis, you know. And if you hit X, Y or Z twice, the movement or rotation will get locked to an axis depending on the orientation of the object. So just, if you don't know what I mean, just try this out. This is pretty handy if you just rotated an object and you want to move this along an axis which is depending on the orientation of the object. Sometimes this is pretty handy. And here I'm just creating a few more vertices by hitting W and selecting Subdivide. Then I'm selecting those, just deleted the face and created 2 new faces, and actually I did the same thing for here. Selected those vertices, create a new face, actually over here again. Then selecting this face, grabbing it along the y-axis, and then I'm selecting this edge, extruding it out on the x-axis, extruding it out on the z-axis, actually, creating a new face here as well, and the last face down here. But this you can't see this face, so you don't have to do this. And actually this is the model. It's not too hard to get this model if you know how to do this. And now we come to the non-blender part, for which you'll use a software like GIMP or Photoshop or Pixelmator, as I used just a photo editing software which has a polygon lasso tool, and a layer tool, or however this is called. And then you just create a selection of the parts which are visible, and afterwards you create a selection of the parts which are partly covered. Yeah, I think this is not too hard. It's basically just creating a selection. I think I don't have to tell you guys how to use a polygon lasso tool. It's not too hard. Just needs sometime, but this scene is pretty basic and we have just two parts which are covered a bit, and actually the background. Yeah, this is... yeah, now you close the selection, hit Command C or Control C to create a selection and Command V or Control V to paste it. Then we have this, and now we select the other parts, the other two parts. Make sure the right layer is selected. Create a selection with the polygon lasso tool, and yeah, this is pretty basic. Command C, Command V or Control with Windows. Then we have the selection, and then just use a clone brush tool or a stamp or however this is called. Set the opacity to 100%. I'm trying to get it right. I think this isn't... yeah. Needs some time, but isn't too hard to create actually. Maybe I'll speed this up a bit. Yeah, that's way better. So, here we are. Now I'm selecting this part here. Use the polygon lasso tool again. Create a selection. Oh no, not like this. So just create a selection of this part. Command C or Control C on Windows. Command or Control V again to paste it. Use the stamp to act. Yeah, that's part missing. Yeah, have to copy that from the background layer, paste it. Here we are, using the stamp brush tool. But first combine those two together, then use the stamp brush tool. I think it is time to speed up again. Yeah. And as you can see, the same thing as before, just using the stamp brush, clone brush, however you want to call this. So, and next we have those layers, and we have to create the background after that, but first we want to keep the overview, so we're naming the layers. Just something you can remember. Part 1, part 2, part 2 big and part 2 small, however, doesn't matter. Just keeping the overview is important, so I'm doing this. And after that it's time to actually create the background. So I'm creating a selection because I want to keep those shadows. This helps to make the scene look more realistic. Yeah, if you just delete those shadows, wouldn't look too good. So I'm creating selection, moving the selection to the right side. Not so good. Left side better. Yeah. Selecting it. Command or Control C to make a copy, and moving it, pasting it actually, and then moving it, this selection, over the anvil. That's it. But as you can see, you can tell those edges isn't too good. So first combine those two layers together. Use the clone brush to make those edges a bit less obvious. Actually, I think I could speed this part up again. Here we are, and maybe the repair tool helps a bit to create a better result. Actually not, no. But yeah, that's it. And now we come to the fun part. First we have to select the parts which are partly covered. Hit P, then selection to separate those parts. The same thing here. Now, as you can see, those are separated. And after that, we have to set the render engine to cycles render. Then we split the window and select UV image editor and select the anvil, split the window again, select node editor, and then we go into edit mode, select everything, hit W, subdivide it a few times, then U, project from view, and then we create a new material. And we delete the diffuse shader and add in an image texture. Then I open up the first texture, which is called part 1, and then I add in an emission shader, and now we should see the texture applied onto the anvil model. Yes, you see it, but Blender doesn't take use of the transparency, so we have to fix this. So we first add in a light path. So where it is actually under input, light path here, yeah. And then we connect is camera ray to the strength of the emission shader, and after that we add in a transparent shader. Here it is. Where? Transparent? Here, yeah. Transparent shader, and then we add in a mix shader. Yeah. Shift A, shader, mix shader. Plug the transparency into the upper slot and then connect the alpha into the factor slot. And now we can see something has changed. Actually, you can see the transparency is working, and we have to create the material for this part here. So we select the big part, give the material a name, part 1, for example, and then select the other part, select the material part 1 and hit this little 2 to make the material independent from the other one. Now I'm selecting everything, W, subdivide twice, project from view, and then we just have to select the other texture, the part 2 big. Actually, we can rename it afterwards. And if we go to rendered view, we can see this. It's working. Yeah, good. And now the last part, actually it is the same thing again, and that's why I didn't want to do the whole trailer scene, because the steps are just repeating. This is boring. I mean, with this scene you can see what is going on, it's not too long, so the same thing, rename it part 2, big, small, doesn't make any sense. Anyways, subdivide it, project from view, selecting the image again, load in the image there, and now if we go to rendered view, we can see that this is our anvil. But that's not everything, we need the background, actually the plane underneath. You have to create this again, or as well, grab it a bit downwards, go to front view by pressing 1 on the number pad, grabbing a bit down, yeah, that's it. Scaling it up a bit, selecting everything, W, subdivide, 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 subdivide 8 times or so, hit U, project from view, and then we need to select the image, open this up, and yeah, select the previous material, go out of edit mode, create an independent one, or however you want to call this. Call it background, that's it. Now we only have to select the background image, and now we can see the magic. That's it, and I think we're done with this tutorial, but now I want to show you how to create an actual animation, and this is really not hard to do. Just select your camera, use Shift F or G to move it around. Afterwards, Shift F, G, grab it a bit around, Shift F, yeah, that's always good, and then close this, yeah, good idea. Now hit I, location, rotation. This will add a keyframe. Go on the timeline to frame 100, change the position of your camera, grab Shift F, G and so on, hit I, select location, rotation, scale, setting the end to 100 or however you want this, and then you can see the animation plays through, and you could export this into video, but this is what I'm going to show you in the next part. So I'm going to show you how to export a video, and I'm going to show you how to do a bit post-processing to make your video look more interesting. And here you also can see my previous video, which was about how to create a vintage look in Blender. So I just showed you that you can use Blender as a photo editing software. It actually works, it's pretty cool, and I would be really happy if you give me a feedback. If you liked it, a thumbs up, and if you think something is not good, just leave a comment, say this, give me a feedback. This really helps me, and yeah, hopefully we see us next time. Bye!